How many times have you guys asked me to do a video where it's more like an over the shoulder? We have a client in-house. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. Okay, so today I'm gonna be grading a video for my wife, aka Dana Qazi. She runs a YouTube channel. I'm creating a look for her that she's gonna take, apply it in Resolve onto all her future talking heads. That's what's gonna happen. And then let me just give it to Dana and then we'll jump right in.
My name is Dana. Lots of people call me Auntie because I run a YouTube channel for kids called Auntie's Castle. So we do lots of reading and crafts and go on adventures. But the look for this is essentially to be a real life LOL doll. So I want it just poppy, circusy, as bright as possible, as saturated as possible, as fun as possible.
Now, a couple of things the questions that I have for you, it looks like this is...
Yep, just natural light. So I have like in my office, just natural light. Then there's like a natural light like way off in the side. I wouldn't even consider it a backlight. It's just more so lighting the background.
What camera are you using?
I'm just using my iPhone. So I
do
everything on my iPhone.
So that's funny. Once again, I just want to say, you know, the day and age that we're at, like, you know, there's going to be all sorts of different projects that you're going to work on. Sometimes you're working with Alexa. Sometimes you're working with a consumer Sony camera, A7S or something. Sometimes you're working with an iPhone. Our job is not to go, I only work with Alexa and I'm only comfortable with red, but we need to be nimble and work with anything. So that's totally fine. I think those are good questions to like now just take that stuff, jump and Resolve and see what we got going on. Before we do, there is one thing that I used to do on my channel that I want to bring back, which was talent spotting. And I would just go pick out a colorist and give them a shout out, you know, or just a filmmaker. And today I want to talk about Wadha Colors, and you guys should check out her page. So it's at Wadha Colors. And I mean, first of all, I mean, I am so proud because she's part of FCM, like my masterclass. She took the masterclass, did really well in the competitions, like the weekly competitions we do, and then she blew up, worked on, like, look at this, worked on freaking World Cup commercials.
That's
and
wild.
Everything that she's working on. I mean, just like look at on the screen, like the kind of projects that she's working on. So she's doing commercials, she's doing music videos, she's doing short form, just absolutely killing the game. So if you guys like following colorists, she's definitely one to follow, and her link is going to be in the description as well, and on the screen you guys can see the tag. And let's just jump right into the video. Jumping in. So here's the shot. Obviously it's Rec 709, so like look at the scopes. Most of the stuff is already kind of maxed out, so you might think like, what else can you do? You'll be surprised. Like there's still room that we can play with, but obviously we don't want to crack the image. We just want to make it better. And since I'm giving her a LUT, I'm creating a LUT for her, and two, it's going to be a pretty minimal like secondaries that I'm going to apply on this. I don't need to necessarily use my fixed node tree. You guys have probably seen that it's around 27 nodes, so we don't have to go that heavy-handed on this. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm just going to start off with, let's just say 4 nodes. If we need more, we can use more. So I'm going to apply a color transform right here. I'm going to hold option. I'm going to paste it here too. So that's a quick hack. If you hold option and drag and drop, you can copy paste the same effect onto a different node. So I'm going to call this one in. I'm going to call this one out, and I'm hitting tab to label my nodes, but that's not a default. So you can go under keyboard customization and set that up. So N is, you know, what is this footage? This footage is Rec 709. We know that, right? So we're just going to do Rec 709 gamma 2.4 is going to look like that. Fine, because we're going to be working in DaVinci wide gamut, so I wanted to convert it, right? And then on the tail end, I'm going to take DaVinci wide gamut, and then I'm going to change it back to Rec 709, and then I'm going to do gamma 2.4. And if I take this and do before and after, you can look at the scopes, nothing changes. So what was the meaning of that? That makes no sense. It's just a lot of confusing stuff that's happening here. Not really, because we just opened up our image for the content aware tools. So whether I'm using my custom curves, whether I'm using my HDR palette, whether I'm using my color warper here, all those tools are going to behave completely differently in the DaVinci wide gamut color space compared to a Rec 709. I don't want to work in Rec 709. First thing that we notice when I look at the shot is that I don't like how much yellow is in the room. And you know, this yellow is not necessarily the the color temperature that's messed up. And I can tell you that because look at her teeth, look at her eyes, like the white is actually white. Look at the Adidas white is white, right? So this is happening because on her wall, you see these colors like this yellow and this green, and she has it on the other side too, right? So that is what's being reflected back and casted. So what we have to do is that since I want to create a LUT for her, I want to do these global changes, these big changes. So I would want to swing that hue and just kind of desaturate the yellows a little bit. First swing them a little bit so we take them toward like red, and then that's going to help the skin tones, that's going to help everything, and then pull it down just a little bit so we just take emphasis off of that. So that would be one of the things that I would do, and I would do it on my third node, like later nodes, because this is just for my color temperature, and I'm looking at my vector scope and the color temperature is looking pretty good. What happens if I hover over on her skin, where her skin sits, and you can see the little indicator right here when I hover over, the skin is right in the center. The skin tones are perfect, where it's supposed to be. So we don't necessarily have to do much there, okay? There's a couple of ways to control this yellow tinge. You can go under hue versus saturation, click right here, I can pull it down. I can click on it again. This time I'm under hue versus hue. I want to swing it up. I want to just give it a little bit of red than yellow. And you can see like I'm warming up my yellows too. Like look at this yellow. We warmed it up a little bit. And warm colors just look better than like the ugly yellow, you know, that's like just a green yellow that you would see. And this is where we're at, and we're controlling that quite a bit, right? So this change is gonna get translated through when we export a LUT. Something to remember, okay? Like she needs a high key look. Well, look at her face. It's already like pretty bright, because if I click right here and if I hover over here and you look at like in my waveform where her face sits, it is already above the normal IRE for your skin tones, even Caucasian skin tones. So in an ideal world, her face should be, let's just do gain and pull it down. Her face should be somewhere around here, okay? Which she'll have a heart attack. See?
No,
so like, yeah, she doesn't want that. But what we can do now at this point is that one way to kind of protect like where the face is, and like, I don't want to mess with that when I build my curve, but then maybe we can add pop everywhere else, is like select your qualifier and then hover over here when you're in your custom curves, okay? And I'm just gonna go ahead and click right here. And as soon as I click right here, you can see like it created a little point here, okay? So we're basically saying, hey, create a point there so like I don't mess with the tones that are right here, especially the luminance levels, and then I can play with everything above it and below it, okay? And now I can click right here, and if I just do that and start moving this around, you can kind of see like what we're doing. And what I like about it is that we thought like everything was just like so pushed and contrasty and poppy, but like just by doing a little bit of that, you can see like how much more color we're bringing in. Like, and all of a sudden things start to become more 3D, like even from the background, she start to pop out a little bit. Same thing is happening with her shirt. And like, you can just see like, you know, it's creating a little bit more detail. And this is like right now in this phase, we're just kind of playing around and we're just kind of seeing like, where can we go? What can we do to just add a little bit more? Even if I do this, how are you feeling about these changes?
I like this. I like that it's saturating the colors, and I love like my blacks to be black because it adds a good contrast. I don't love the skin tone getting darker.
Okay. So in that case, what we can do is we can create another point right here and just like lift it up just a tiny bit. So if I do before and if I do after, it's such a subtle change, but it can just start to, like, I'm just like looking at her face right now, and it's like, can we bring something back there like that we had? Because one thing is that, like I said, it's so clipped and up top. I'm having a hard attack grading this because the face should never be sitting there. And people that are watching this probably will be hitting a thumbs down, you know, because they're just like, you should never keep a face where you're keeping it. So we're obviously just making our client happy where they want to go. But like, she's already saying that even with the contrast that I created, she's like, okay, no, make my face even brighter. So ultimately you got to do what the client wants. So like what we can do is like, can I pick this up from this side and then start raising it up? Even if like some of this detail is like blown out as much as like it just like pops really hard.
I want all the detail blown out. I want all the wrinkles, the sunken eye skin, the wrinkles in my forehead. I want it all blown out.
One of the things that I'm going to tell you is that all my screens are so nerfed, but imagine playing this video on your dad's TV in Vivid. I mean, if you want like a preview of that, like let's look at it right now. So if I were to blow this up here and go here, and if we just change the settings to Vivid, you have to see that this is what it's going to look like on your dad's TV. So like that is one thing to always keep in mind, and I think that's the thing that most of the clients forget. So I mean, look at the difference. Okay, I mean obviously the phone is going to be constantly adjusting it, so it's not going to give us like the perfect, you know, preview of like what we want. But if you see that screen to this screen, like you can see the difference, and that's what happens. Majority of the TVs are set to Vivid. So that's one thing that we have to educate our clients on, and why these numbers are created, where your skin tones are supposed to sit, you know, the 18% gray and all those things like are very important. But again,
what about on an iPhone or an iPad? Because I feel like my ducklings, that's where they're gonna watch it.
iPhone and iPads are gonna be very close to
True.
these screens.
Yeah, that's good.
This is a amazing like video, because you're getting to see what client wants to like what we think is right are completely two different things. It's east and west, and we have to try to merge that gap. Like that's our job as a colorist. I have to figure out a language where I still want her to be happy. I don't want her to shut her down and tell her, you don't know what you're talking about, let me tell you how things go. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. But I just want to make sure that she walks away happy, and we give her something that she goes, oh my God, like where we started to where we ended up. Obviously we're not, you know, there yet, but I'm trying to understand what else can we do. So one of the tools that I've been using lately that are absolutely insane, that are way better than using your HSL curves to create color density and things like that, is a DCTL from Mono Nodes. And I'm just gonna type that in. I'm gonna bring it in. I might actually use a few, okay? So I'm gonna click here, go all the way down. And the first one that we can just start with, so you guys can like really see what it does, is that I'm gonna go to the mono density. And as soon as I bring this in, okay, look what it does. So I can go and take certain colors like say magenta, and I can just do this. And you can see like, look at the saturation right here does not change. The saturation levels on my vector scope, but if I do before and after, look at the amount of punch we added to our colors, and that's basically subtractive colors, right? Like we're just adding density without actually blowing it up or saturating it.
This is magic.
Isn't that crazy?
Do it with green.
So now if we do that with green, you can see like, you know, we're popping that up too, right? Like it's coming in a little bit. It depends. It might be more into yellow than green, but like see, like, so it can get more dense. And then we can do the same with red, but don't freak out if it affects your skin, because I have a solution for that. So even if we do that, it affects your skin, I can go in and just leave your skin out of it like that. And now if we do it, pull back on the red still a little bit, like, so you guys can see how much saturation we added, yet like look at my vector scope, nothing got blown out. Okay, so subtractive color is ridiculously hot. All right, so this is looking pretty good. You know, now if we do before and after, like we're going somewhere, right? Like, and again, all of this can be translated on a LUT.
Filmmakers are always chasing for that color density. When they are talking about the film look, most of the time it's like those deep reds, deep tones, right? And this tool lets us get there. You can do it in Resolve using your saturation or hue versus luminance. It's just not the same. It's not as clean.
Look at another tool that I'm going to use, which is going to be also mind-blowing, and I'm going to drop that on. This is also from Mono Nodes, and this time I'm going to use their brightness. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do brightness, and this is pretty good too, because now if I go into like, see like how it's brightening up your skin, if I go into the red and if I pop it, and you can even see what it's doing to your orange. So you see how much it's popping these colors. And we can try to do the same thing with yellow, and you can see how the greens and the yellows are popping, right? And what else can we do this to? Like, you know, we can, I don't want to do it to the magenta because I feel like it's just really good where it's sitting. But what if, one, we go here, we take the blues and the cyan, and we also kind of add some depth to those two. And then I want to go here, I want to go under my cyan, and I want to pop it. How are you feeling with this? Are these changes good or bad?
They are amazing.
Okay, so we started with this. This is where we're sitting right now. And
Keeping in mind that we want to create a LUT, we want to do as much as possible with what the final LUT is going to be. And then if she is asking for something where we can't go, we're going to start getting into our secondaries, and then it's going to become a power grade. But just like as a colorist, I'm thinking about these things, like how far can I go? How much more can I do with these broad tools? And I feel like this is such a missed opportunity. Like so many beginners that I watch, the first thing that they do is like they just jump right into qualifiers. They jump right into, you know, their HSL curve, not even HSL curves, their windows and things like that. And it's like dodge and burning, and those things are good, but they come later. It's like pass number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay.
I'm just thinking about one more tool that could be cool, but it might not work, but I'm just gonna try it because she just wants like such crazy colors. This thing, okay, it's called crosstalk, RGB crosstalk, and that's basically the same as your RGB mixer here, but it does the math for you. The whole idea behind using RGB mixer is that if this goes to 1.30, then I have to subtract that color from one of these or half and half. What does that mean? That means that I gotta take my green and take it to -30. And as soon as I do that, like look what I did and how much pop I added into the image again by just like twisting my RGB channels. All right. So like just look how much it exploded everything on the vector scope. Obviously that's too much, but you kind of get the idea. It is still kind of cool, right? Like how much it just pops. So instead of like me doing that here and manually doing it and making sure that, you know, it evens out to 1, like it does the math for us. So now I can go in these tools and I can just take my red and do a very similar thing. So I can just go here and I can go how much I want to kind of add that pop, and then how much do I want to, like, you know, yellows are cool, but like a little bit of magenta in the skin tones is even better. Okay, so like look at her face. Don't you like your face? This more or this?
Show me before.
So this is before. So it has like overall a little bit more on the yellow side.
Yeah.
And then this is a little bit on the magenta side, like, you know, just cooler side. We can even pull it back a little bit. So now I just like even split the difference there. But this is before and after.
Yeah.
Right? And then we can take the overall hue here and I can just keep it a little bit toward like magenta to see like how the lips look better.
Yeah.
And all of that. And then there's so much more separation. Like look at in the back, like what it did to the orange and the yellows and even the...
I just think my face is too saturated.
What we can do is even just in this saturation, we can pull this back a little bit. Tell me where you're happy.
You tell me where you're happy. You're the professional.
This does look good. I think the only thing that might be throwing you off is like, once again, how much magenta we had added. So I split it, right? Like I brought it back a little bit.
Such small tweaks, because remember, we're working with Rec 709. So it's like, how far can we push an image that's already maxed out, right? Lit under natural lighting. She's so close to the window. It's already blown out. How can we, but you still saw like how much room there still is, even in an iPhone footage. Not to mention, guys, when she dropped this clip for me, it is 13 megabytes.
What does that mean?
13 megabytes. It's like a photo is like much bigger. Like when you take photos, right, on your camera, isn't it like 40, 50 megs?
Yeah, but I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. Like one photo on her camera, A7S III, is 40 or 50 megabytes, whereas this video clip that she gave me is 13 megabytes. So you know what we're working with. Super, super compressed, and we're able to pull something like that. So I mean, this is, I mean, are you happy?
I am happy. I still think that there's too much contrast on my face.
How about this? So then in that case, guys, one of the things that you can do is you can go right here, and this is basically your opacity for your curve. So I can go here and I can start dialing it back and you tell me where you're happy. So at 50, it's like no effect. And then we can kind of split the difference. So this is splitting the difference. So this is before, this is after. So still ads pop, but like you said, this looks good on an iPhone, this looks good on my calibrator screens, and most of the time, this is her talking head. She shoots it in her office, and my goal was to like taking these colors that are all in there, and how can we keep massaging it? And one, we clean up this door, closet door that I always like, it bothered me. But again, I told you guys, this is coming from like the green, right? Like
no, the door itself is cream.
And well, it's cream, but you get what I'm saying? Like it's just totally different than it is here.
Yeah.
So there's like all that coming through, and we were able to like control that completely, you know, and the skin tones got even and brighter how she wanted it. One of the things that I can do for you, I just don't think I should, because I was gonna soften up the image, but I'm like looking at your face and it already kind of feels soft and processed, so I don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, like I would like a glowy effect, but I like to keep the eyes like really sharp.
That's the thing, because what I can do is if I go under this parameter, I'm gonna just add a little blur, right? So if I just go to even just 0.52, it takes out the sharpness that we get from a small sensor like an iPhone camera, but then it also takes it out from the eyes a little bit. Barely noticeable, but there.
I can notice it.
But if you can't notice it, then I would like to leave that effect, but the problem is, again, it's not gonna be translated in the LUT. So let's take that out for now, because right now, I wanna create a version that's a LUT, save it, print it, then go and just add a few more things. So where we are right now, is there any other change you would wanna make?
Is there any way you can make me skinnier?
So the way I go about it, that's just a technique from my mentor, Dado. And when we first saw it, like my brain was exploded. We were all like, we thought he was joking, but that's what he did. He went under the node sizing and just literally went in and did that. Just changed the aspect ratio. Just a hair, nothing crazy. So the square still looks like a square, right? So everything else like looks the same. But if I do before and after, you can just see overall, like even her shoulders, you know, shoulder to shoulder, that's pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. So I would just do that. But once you do that, you see that little pillar boxing that happens. So we gotta control that. So now I'm just gonna go in, punch in my image just that much to control that. So I basically added 0.5 because I took away 0.5 from the width. So here's the math for all the nerds. so there's that. And then that just did this. Now just know that this is not going to get translated in the LUT, but that's okay because this is going to be part of the Powergrade. And speaking of getting into the Powergrade, first thing that I want to do, let's just do this. I'm going to copy this, delete it, and what we had right here, let's convert it into a LUT. So the way you would do is that you would go on a clip level, right click here, and I'm going to say generate LUT, 33 point cube, good enough for me. Dana Qazi, day talking head. Okay, so I'm just gonna throw it in here. And as soon as I do that, okay, now we have a LUT created. How do we apply it? How do we bring it in? I'm gonna go ahead and create a new version. I'm gonna right click and delete everything. So now we're back to square one. I'm gonna go under my LUTs. I'm gonna right click and say refresh. I'm gonna look for a folder called Dana Qazi. I'm gonna come right here. I'm gonna double tap on it and that applies it. And if I hide this and if I hide that, and if I go back and forth between the two versions, look at my waveform, look at my scopes. So all this jiggery pokery that happened here, the secret sauce, is just in that one node now. So now you can just turn this on and off and you got everything in one node. Now this can be applied, again, screen flow, you know, Zoom doesn't take LUTs, but like anything, right? Like anything that takes LUTs, like even in your phone, if you're using an app, CapCut or something, I'm pretty sure that takes LUTs. Like you can even like edit your videos in CapCut and you can throw this LUT on and it will take it. So,
Snap.
You know, so that's pretty crazy. Now we got that going on, right? So what I want to do, the windows and everything that I want to create, I can do it here, or I can do it here. The reason why I need to do it here and not here is because what if she uploads this and she doesn't have these plugins? Then they're gonna be all offline. right? What if she has the plugins, but somebody that is working for her doesn't have these plugins? So to avoid all of that, we're just gonna make those changes here. Now, since we have our Rec 709 LUT, creative LUT, and the Rec 709 profile is dialed into that, baked into that, I want to make changes prior to this. This is gonna be the same as the tutorial that I did on like the node order, why it is important when you're using creative LUTs. And this is a creative LUT, but it also has a Rec 709 applied to it, meaning I'm gonna have to make other changes before the LUT. So all I wanna do here are those things. I'm gonna paste it. Remember that, right? The skinny effect we did? So now it's here, all right? So that effect is the type of effect, anything that's spatial can go after. So I don't want to confuse you, okay? So like, I mean, if we're gonna do like some weird lens effect, things like that, that actually can go after. But if we're gonna make any like windows or color changes, I would prefer to do those before this, all right? So this can go here, that's totally fine. And then I'm gonna do another node, I'm gonna put it right here. And here, all I wanna do is just a simple window, right? Like vignette, and make it pretty wide, something like that. Rotated like that, or where's the light coming from? Like this, I guess. And then feather it out to 27-ish, or like how I usually do it. Let's just keep it pretty wide. We're gonna invert it, Shift H, so we can affect everything outside of what we are selecting. So something like that. And then all I wanna do here is opposite of what I just did. And then we can just go under gamma, and I can pull this down a little bit, not too crazy. And if I do before and after, right? But the beauty of it is that, you know, it's leaving my subject as is, driving my eyes to go straight, you know, on her, on our subject, our hero. And then, you know, it also adds more punch and saturation and just brings everything together. Like the light wraps around and the colors wrap around, and it just, you know, it's good for me. All right, guys, so now that we created this, made a couple of changes right here, and we want to save it as a power grade, right? So like this and this, like I said, these don't get translated. So what you can do is just right click here, grab a still, and now this is your power grade. So I'm still gonna call it Day Talking Head, and that is her power grade. So at that point, I can just right click export, okay? And you don't want to throw it in the same place as your LUT folder. So I'm just gonna save it in the same project. So I'm gonna go right here, right? So I mean, and I'm gonna save it under deliverables because that's for her, and it should be a DPX, all right? So I'm just gonna save that. And now I have a LUT and the power grade. We're gonna go over to Dana's desk and walk her through how to use the LUT and also the power grade on her future projects. All right, so now we're at Dana's desk, and we're gonna apply the same LUT that we created, LUTs and power grades. So that you wanna keep it on your online drive, and we're gonna drop everything that we created in that folder. And now let's go back in Resolve and open the gallery top left, go back to your main folder, yep, right here, and grab the DRX and drag and drop this in here. Good, and now we can see that that came in even with the label, Day Talking Head. So that's one part of it is done. Now let's bring in the LUT. So go under LUTs right there and right click on LUTs and say reveal in Finder. And now let's take the folder that's called Dana Qazi that contains a LUT and drop it in this folder right here. And now let's go back in Resolve, right click on LUTs and say refresh. And then you should be able to see Dana Qazi, double click, double tap on that to apply the LUT. And there you go. So if you do Command D, we can see before and after. It's exactly what we created. Let's reset that and now apply the power grade. And in here, right click on Day Talking Head and say apply grade. And boom. So now it brought in those two extra steps that we did. So one was the vignette and the other one was beautifying. Beauty of this setup, what we did is that she can send this to a person using Resolve 12. And these changes are gonna come through because majority of the grade is embedded in the LUT. And if somebody's using Premiere Pro, Final Cut 10, Avid, or any other tool, even on their iPhone, they can apply the LUT and get exactly the same look. So we started with this, right? We ended up here. How are you feeling?
I love it. I think it's
right?
perfect.
So that's like the best comment that you can get, and obviously she's doing that because she's my wife. But if the client gives you those, like,
I just trust you. Like, what can I say when you're like the professional? You did 12 things. I would have stopped like 12 steps ago. I thought it was fine. I just bump up the saturation on mine. That's usually what happens.
and that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, and it's just so crazy. Like, if I were to go here and just kind of show, and she's absolutely right. Like, that's what my brothers do. That's what, like, a lot of YouTubers do. Like, you know, people that don't know color grading. So, like, if I were to go, because a normal RGB saturation is additive. It's not subtractive, like how we edit saturation. So if I go here and just take my saturation knob and crank it, look at what's happening to my my vector scope, and how everything is already going past, like, how far it can go. But like, people would keep something like this and be like, this is so good. But then when they watch other grades that are like really pushed and clean, and they go, how did you get that? Right? Like, you know, again, like the Barbie tutorial that you guys saw, and you can see like how this is probably the same level as the Barbie pink, right? Not less or more. But even if we go to this example, like, I want to show you this on my website, right? Like, if I take you here and show you like this spot right here, and we'll just look at some stills. But even like looking at these stills, it looks like, oh my God, this is so saturated. This is so crazy. But what's really happening is that it's that subtractive saturation. Like, the entire image looks really clean, right? Mm-hmm. Even the skin tones are so clean and everything. And I'm just adding saturation where the saturation needs to be. And if we go through and like look at other frames, like even this one especially, like, it just seems like there's so much color. Like, what's going on? You know, it's quite the opposite. Like, I really pulled a lot of the color out of the image and then chose the parts that should have color. And that's the difference between like doing a blanket, like, let's just add saturation and everything is gonna pop. But then people go like, why does it not look as clean as, like, you know, when we watch commercials on TV? That's what's really happening. So we applied a lot of those techniques here. But the best part about it was that at the end of the day, is my client happy? Once again, right? Like, you know, where the skin tones are sitting, blah, 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 blah. It's all subjective. At the end of the day, color grading, you got to have fun with it.
You can't like really go zeros and ones and get too technical with it. I mean, if you want to, good for you. But ultimately, what does she want, right? She doesn't give a about like zeros and ones. Like, she's sitting here telling me, no, make it brighter, make it brighter. And I'm thinking in my head, holy fuck, like, this is gonna break on every screen. But if that is something that she wants, and this is the stuff that we see on TV and we see at so many places, like, high key look is a vibe. It might not be your vibe, but if that's what she wants, I'm gonna advise her. And you saw that part in this video where, like, I don't want to argument with have an argument with my client, but I'm just gonna tell her that, hey, how about this, that, or the other thing? And like, what if I show you this? What if I show you that? Like, have a reason. And reason with them and just try to bring them into your world. So the key takeaway here, I would say, is that at the end of the day, color grading is subjective, and it's going to come down to what your client wants. Or if you're working on a certain project, what does that project require? Okay. And I would highly encourage you to stop looking at color grading with, you know, zeros and ones, with that mindset that everything is objective. You can, if you want to become a color scientist, that's a completely different field. If you want to be a colorist, you're gonna have these conversations, like where your client will tell you, I know what you're saying, that the skin tones need to be here, but it's making me puke. Take it up and put it right here. And that's how I want it. And then that's what you gotta do. But you can have a healthy dialogue like we did. And then I showed her on the TV in vivid settings, like, hey, this is right in front of you. And that's why having a client monitor is so important, to be like, what do you think? Like, do you still want to push it? Do you still want to go there? And then you put the ball in their court. It's totally up to them. If they still want to do it, absolutely, let's do it. If you want to dial it back, and then she actually made me come back on the contrast, which is amazing. Like, you know, and that was her decision. So not necessarily we're manipulating, and I want her to do what I want her to do. And then she did that, right? Like, on her own. So it's like, you know, she's saying the things that I want her to say, but by showing her, it's totally her choice. And then that's where we ended up. So stay creative. Don't take this entire thing too seriously. Have fun with color grading. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.